was in front of a giant jester creature monster with black and white lines, a big purple lips, grin up to his ears, massive glowing eyes, jester horns, like horns shaped like a jester's hat. His skin was multicolored. And I came back and I'm like, okay, so I've seen one of them now, and they are giants, and they look insane and terrifying. They aren't Nephilim themselves. They're like mutants. They're X-Men. They used to be human, now they're not, you know. As I was learning about where demons come from, how they are the disembodied spirits of these half-angel, half-human hybrids. And I realized there's only one thing that's stuck on Earth without a body, and that's the Nephilim. So if people go to another realm and see creatures, what you're interacting with can only be, from a biblical perspective, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. That there is a spiritual realm just beyond our perception of a grand cosmic circus in its style, with its moving lights and colours and everything. There really are secret societies who worship the devil, who control us in many facets of our industries and life, and we've all been duped on a mass scale for millennia. Immutable facts about reality and how it functions. If you mirror something in the spirit realm, you are creating a channel for it to get into your body.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again on A Seat for Jesus. I have an amazing guest with me tonight, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things, conspiratorial and otherwise, and I'm really hoping that you sit back and listen and enjoy. So I'd like to welcome Paul. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so you are all the way from the UK. I know some people might know you in the community or whatever, but if not, so you're from the UK. Have you been there pretty much all your life?
Yeah, born and raised in the Northwest.
Yeah. Okay.
I did live in the east of England for my university degree for about 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, England's so small to you, that's not even changing a state, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really make much of a difference. So, yeah, I'm here in the UK, you know, that's it.
Have you ever come over here to the US?
I've been to Florida.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, but I haven't really explored America, if you get what I mean. I would like to, though. Me and my wife are thinking of one day just driving across America when the kids are a bit older and can look after themselves a bit more, you know, and just checking it all out. Yeah, God willing, we'll see if that's even possible in the future, you know. But yeah, that would be nice.
There's some nice experience.
What I did experience, the people are great.
There's definitely some nice places. So, I wanted to just maybe get a little introduction on yourself and your channel. So, came across your channel, Understanding Conspiracy. So, just from the name, I guess we kind of get an idea of what it's about. But if you could even just give a little more detail, like what kind of things do you talk about on your channel, and you know why you started doing all that? Yeah, give a little background.
Sure. So, my channel is the epitome of what I kind of call a scattershot conspiracy theorist. I cover anything and everything related to conspiracy and the topics involved with it. But my channel is a little bit different from most of the conspiracy channels because I'm not really one to like hype up every single event and talk about how it's the New World Order's right around the corner, that type of thing. I'm not a news chaser necessarily. What I like to do and what the ethos of my channel was from the very beginning is that it's more of a commentary on what it is to be a truther and how to deal with the information and learning it and how to deal with loved ones, friends, and family. So I have a podcast called The Truther Therapy Sessions every Sunday. And that kind of goes into that concept a bit more, and it includes calling special guests to tell their stories and the pitfalls and the highs and the lows of kind of, you know, waking up, for lack of a better phrase, you know, and kind of seeing the horrors of reality for the first time and kind of wanting to tell your loved ones, friends, and family the rejection that comes with it, you know. But I am fundamentally a Christian truther, you know, so it's all biblically based, and I'm always trying to spread the gospel throughout everything I do as well, because I think that is the best way to deal with understanding the conspiracy. Once you come to terms with what's really going on, you find that the truth is the Bible, the truth is the biblical narrative, and the truth is in Christ, and he is the way and the life, and without him you don't have the truth. So as a conspiracy theorist, I think it's the perfect platform to get them to the gospel, because people who are lost and seeking and in fear, who want answers, well, I found through my journey that's where the answers were. So the whole channel's ethos is to make sure people get there, at least if they're going to do anything, get to that point if you want to understand what the conspiracy is all about, then you need to understand what happened with Jesus, because that's the only reason you have a conspiracy to begin with. That's what the enemy is even there for, and that's kind of the ethos of the whole channel. But like I said, I have that section. I also do my own studies into occult things. I don't glorify the occult in any way. I expose the occult, but I have a good understanding, a good, well-rounded understanding of the symbols and the meanings behind them, and the methods used in the occult circles. Just because I did a lot of study prior to being saved, I was a very New Agey, Gnostic type, Taoist, Eastern philosophy thinker in my early 20s. But when I became born again in 2014, and I saw the truth was in Christ, and that's where the real truth is. It became solely about exposing the occult for what it actually is and leading people to Christ. So with that knowledge, that base, I do go around and I do comment on events sometimes when they happen, and kind of holistically try and see where does it fit in the grand narrative of things. So I'm not reactionary. I usually wait a day or two or maybe a week after an event to kind of look at the aftermath and try and figure out, so where in the agenda is this leading then? What was the point of the event? And people, a lot of channels in the truth community perhaps would say this event's fake or that's not real, and focus on the event itself and pick it apart. I'm more interested in the aftermath. I want to see, what did the event do to the public? What was the result of the event? What was the changes made in reaction to the event, to society as a whole? And I think that gives us better indications of what the narrative is and where we're going and what the agendas are working towards. So that's kind of what I do on my channel. So it's a little bit different than most conspiracy channels. Because I truly want to create content that people can share with their loved ones, friends, and family confidently. Because when I started the channel in 2014, I came into the truth of stuff in the rise of the end of the world in 2012, when the Mayan calendar was coming to an end.
Yeah. And
I got swept up in all of that, not because I believed it necessarily, because I was like, what are these people seeing that's making them think this is going to happen? What is going on? It caught my attention, and I was doing an art degree at the time in the east of England, in Lincoln, next to this beautiful cathedral, and I was doing my art project, and I chose conspiracy as like my subject matter because it fascinated me. And I was already deep in like esoteric, sacred geometry, because I'm an artist. I love that type of thing, and Eastern, like I say, Eastern philosophy, psychedelic exploration. I was very much in the world. That's who I was, lost in it, looking for answers, seeking spiritualism without including God into the picture was where I was originally. So I kind of, when I heard all the New Age types saying we're moving into the age of Aquarius, or we're going to have a fifth dimensional consciousness shift and we're all going to vibrate out of our bodies into the new world, and it's the end of a cycle into the new age, the golden age, and all this type of thing. I was like, oh, whatever, that sounds crazy. I don't know about that. But then the Christians were saying, well, the rapture's around the corner, or it's the start of tribulation, or this type of thing, or the more secularist, atheistic, conspiracy theorist types, like it's Nibiru, the 13th planet's coming back, and the Anunnaki are going to come back and enslave humanity to mine for more gold. Everyone had an idea. Everyone had their own theory about what the end of the calendar meant. And obviously it was a whole lot of nothing at the end of it all. But that jump-started my research into finding out, what do conspiracy theorists believe? What's going on here? I thought I could come at it from like an analytical, psychological perspective. But I soon realized, no, this is real. There really are secret societies who worship the devil, who control us in many facets of our industries and life. And this is actually a serious issue. And we've all been duped on a mass scale for millennia. Like, we're in trouble. Like, this is terrifying information. And I wasn't picking a side in the early days, but I knew there's enough here to realize that, okay, this is actually the right information. It's just in the wrong hands, because the people who were kind of presenting stuff then were crazy. They looked and sounded insane. They actually genuinely did. They were the stereotypical conspiracy theorists. Yeah. They ranted and raved and didn't know when to shut up, and had this weird energy about them that is just so off-putting. And their presentation styles were terrible. There was always epic music in the background with images of like meteors smashing into the ocean, causing tidal waves, wiping out cities, with Requiem for a Dream blasting in the background. And it's kind of, this isn't going to convince anybody of anything, is what I thought. This is awful. But the information's solid. It's just the people presenting it aren't going to be taken seriously by those who need to know this type of stuff. And I could see the problem glaring me in the face immediately. So when I did start the channel, my ethos was, I'm going to make the content I wish I saw. I want to make content that can be shared without fear of people judging them for it or saying, what's this crazy thing you're showing me? I wanted to be a calm, level-headed voice in the community that could deliver that to people. And, what was I, a dumb kid at like the age of 23 with a YouTube channel with no subscribers, thinking I could do this. And I just tried. And as time went on, the years went on, I got a good few thousand subscribers, And by 2016, I'd been like swimming in biblical knowledge and kind of getting to grips with the Bible properly, because I'd finally given myself over to Christ by 2014. And I realized, I kind of needed to know him. And so I read the Word and understood that he was the Word. And I went through the whole process, And because I wasn't raised a Christian, I guess I don't really know the rules of engagement of how I'm supposed to behave as a Christian. I don't have any church programming in me or a dogma of any specific kind or a denominational's worldview to like taint my view in some way, but I went at it as best I could through the internet and through listening to preachers online of many denominations, be it Catholic or Protestant or Pentecostal, and evangelical, and it's just Orthodox, whatever it is, just listening to these sermons. And the one that spoke to me the most was Derek Prince. He's like a Pentecostal preacher who's not with us anymore. I think he died in like the 90s or something, but his lectures survived. And he really taught me a lot about spiritual warfare, which is something I was struggling with once being born again. I was getting heavily demonic oppressed and attacked, and nightmares and visions and all sorts of weird things. Once I quit all the drugs and went cold turkey and, became a new creation and rejected the old life, and the demons didn't like that, and I had a lot of issues, and a lot of attacks, and I didn't really know what to do with that because it was all new to me. I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm actually having experiences with demons. What am I supposed to do with this, And then one night, I think they tried to kill me because I went paralyzed, and I started to go blind. The room was spinning, and I could feel I was dying. That's what it felt like. I was like some kind of brain aneurysm. I don't know what was going on, but I just said, Jesus, help me, as like a croak out of my throat is all I could handle. And instantly it stopped and I was back in the room, and I shot up, and it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, this is real.
Wow.
And from that day, I would say I haven't really suffered much in terms of demonic attack anymore. The odd weird dream every now and then, but nothing like that, and the nightmares have stopped and everything. And I would say my life is blessed from that period of time, and I've gone from one strength to another, and I'm not the same person I was before all of that. It's completely gone. Desires have changed, no addictions or anything like that. It's
wow.
I'm happy. I'm happy with the life that God had for me, and that I finally got on the right path that he already had laid out and just followed him, and it works. It truly did. So for the first time I was having tangible results spiritually following Christ. Then I got from the over a decade following Eastern mysticisms and trying to think I was a god and all that stuff, seeking out experiences and spirituality, and those means got me nowhere but death and destruction and misery. But once I gave myself to Christ, everything was perfect in a sense. Not perfect. It's a struggle. It's a grind to burn away that old man. It's hard, it's painful to let go of some things. But once you do, and you start that journey, I'm still being refined now, but I would say I'm miles ahead of where I was prior to this. And I've got a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful children, my own business. I'm self-sufficient, employed. I do this, I've got a book published now, and it's kind of, I couldn't imagine being where I was today before all of that. I was hopeless and desperate and calling out for help, and God did help. He came, he answered, ask and you'll receive. It's true. Yeah. So like I said, I had this channel and swimming in biblical knowledge around this time. 2016 is when I really started what I'm known for, which is the Nephilim Clowns. You can see the book cover behind me here.
Yeah.
I actually do have a stack here that I'm given for signed copies. So this is the final product. And
oh, nice.
It comes off the back of the research of a lot of great researchers before me who kind of 2016 was a period where Nephilim were hot. It was a hot topic, and everyone who was anyone in the conspiracy world was discussing the giants of old. And, I listened to the lectures of like Gary Wayne and Rob Skiba, and there's like Steve Quayle, and then there was L.A. Marzulli. You got there's so many names, big names in the past. You know,
I know those
some
names.
with us, some of them not anymore.
Yeah,
and it explained a lot of the Bible to me that I had issues with, like why the genocide, why the flood, all this, the usual things that most people have issues with when trying to contend with God and his reasonings for doing stuff, that from our perspective seem cruel and vindictive and odd and strange. But once you include the Nephilim into the narrative, it suddenly all becomes very clear what was really going on. And thank God for all those things. Otherwise we wouldn't be here today. We certainly wouldn't even as a people exist. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But that whole narrative was so fascinating to me. And as an artist, I couldn't help but notice patterns in the way they were depicting these giants in these presentations. So usually Rob Ski would have a line of giants all going next to a man in the image, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like they got this big, and I was like, that looks like Conan the Barbarian. Like it's a hench, tanned, brown-haired, bearded beast man with huge pecs and a massive club and a loincloth, like that, straight out of the cave. And it's kind of like, that's not what they would have looked like. That's not what the giants would have looked like. Not only do we understand that they were actually very advanced during that time with technology, they weren't like cave dwellers like I was told, but also what we're told is that angels mixed with humans. Why would they look human? Have you seen any description of the angels in the Bible? They are wild looking things, insane. And, if we consider the seraphim angels, which are just the fiery flying serpents as literally transcribed from the Hebrew, then they're probably dragons. Dragons are probably angels. And I think they have many forms, but there's different classes, of course. But if it's not wheels within wheels, or it's probably dragons or insectoid-like things, or things with animal heads, 4 different heads facing all directions. So there's also, think of Ezekiel's vision, there's so many types of angel that just one of them mixing with the human wouldn't create something that looks human. And I knew this in my soul, like that's not right. They would have looked like something else. And I had this in my mind, for a long time. And I had some experiences in my psychedelic days, which showed me that there is this spiritual realm just beyond our perception, our veil, which is like a grand cosmic circus in its style, in its moving lights and colors and everything. And there was all this talk of DMT jesters, people seeing jesters when they take DMT, and that was always in the back of my mind. And as I was learning about where demons come from, how they are the disembodied spirits of these half angel, half human hybrids.
Yeah.
And I realized there's only one thing that's stuck on Earth without a body, and that's the Nephilim. So if people go to another realm and see creatures, what they're interacting with can only be, from a biblical perspective, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. There's precedence to say perhaps it's people who genetically engineered themselves to become hybrid monsters with animals, maybe. Like in the book of Jasher talks about this mixing of kinds period just before the flood, which corrupted all the DNA. There was no one left perfect in his generations but Noah by that point, and you have to understand, the story tells us in these extra books, people genetically engineered themselves. So that I believe that's where we get cryptids from, things like Mothman, centaurs, mermaids, sirens, half fish, half human, half bull, half human, half horse, half human, half goat, half human, half animal hybrids come from that period of time. This explains, it's there in the Bible. They were doing that. That was what they were doing, And it's possible when they died, they too are stuck on Earth, just like the Nephilim. Their fate is of the Nephilim. But they aren't Nephilim themselves. They're like mutants. They're X-Men. They used to be human, now they're not, And they gave up. They blasphemed the Holy Spirit, you could say. They spat at the image of God, which they were created, and turned themselves into the image of something else, the creation. So I think maybe this is just speculation. Maybe they broke some kind of contractual spiritual law there, and they're stuck on Earth now when they die, because the spirit and the soul and the body are not disconnected from one another. You can't interact with one without affecting the other. I think that's a real biblical concept. And maybe there's some of these demons used to be humans, maybe. But I think predominantly it's the giants, when they were disembodied, became demons. Yeah. And because I knew, all right, so people see jesters on DMT. That was always there. And as time went on, I kind of had some odd experiences. And I was 2 years sober by this point, and I had this vision where I went back to the DMT realm, and they call them flashbacks. It's actually a really common occurrence in the community. Like you could just randomly go back there if you've ever done DMT without your forewarned knowledge. You'll just go back for like a few minutes. And I had like a 10-second moment where I was back, but I was in front of a jester, a giant jester creature monster with black and white lines, a big purple lipped grin up to his ears, massive glowing eyes, jester horns, like horns shaped like a jester's hat. His skin was multicolored. He wasn't wearing a costume or anything, you know, it just was that color. And I came back and I'm like, okay, so I've seen one of them now. That's a DMT jester. They really are there, and they are giants, and they look insane and terrifying, you know. And I just had this concept going around, and then there was the 2016 clown sightings on the news, and I was like, why is that being made such a big deal? Because it's a prank, right? You know, there's a bunch of people messing around. Close to Halloween, you know, but like it spread, and everywhere was doing it in like the Anglosphere, from Canada to America to the UK or Australia. They were all doing it in the Commonwealth countries, you know, where they speak English, or predominantly Christian countries. They were all doing it. You know, they were dressing like clowns and scaring people. And every media station at small town or national was talking about this story of the creepy clown sightings of 2016. And I was like, that's so odd. Nothing gets onto that square box in the corner of our rooms, that scrying mirror, unless they want us to be looking at it. It's programming, you know. So why are they showing a clown? What's that got to do with anything? If I understand how the occult work, which I'm pretty sure I do by that point, it's kind of like that means something to these people. The clown is a symbol for something, and they're sending a message to the initiated here in some way through this orchestrated event that became like a mass hysteria event. So I had all this stuff swimming around, and I was like, okay, I better look into this. And I just typed in Nephilim Clown into YouTube, and nothing came up but one video, which didn't even have clowns in the thumbnail or the title. It was just about the giants. So I clicked on it, and it was some guy having fun at us, making fun of Christians who believe in giants, and making like a mockumentary styled joke video about Nephilim. And they were saying the Nephilim had red hair and white skin, and there's only one explanation. They were interdimensional killer clowns from out of space, you know, and it showed images from the 80s movie and all this type of stuff. And you know, he was joking, but that was, for me, that was a moment where it's like, there's something going on here. And so I started to scratch below the surface, and I started my series in 2016. And the early episodes, like the first 17 episodes, are just the ramblings of the insane. It's me just going on and on and on about nonsense, trying to figure out what the hell's going on here with clowns and the Nephilim, because stuff just kept happening. I kept uncovering things in the media and in history and in cultures all over the earth. It's like, wow, I think the Nephilim looked like clowns, and I think the clown costume is used to channel them. Like it's a tool used to channel demons. And like I said, it just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And then in 2018, I had to stop because my workplace found my YouTube channel, and they threatened to demote me from manager to floor worker if I didn't get rid of the channel. And by this point, I was scared. I was just getting out of debt. I just got this manager's position, you know, and in a moment of weakness, I capitulated. I shut the channel down. And I worked as a Aldi supermarket manager for 5 years, you know, and I hated every second of it. It was hell, because I was living a lie. I'm not a supermarket manager. I'm a Christian truther, you know what I mean? That's what I am. That's what I do. And I kind of just left the work. I left it, you know, and it was quiet for a long time on the Nephilim Clown front. And I think I went into obscurity and people forgot about it all. But then a channel called Conspiracy R Us made a video about my work, saying there was this guy who used to be on YouTube called Understanding Conspiracy, and he made this series about the Nephilim being clowns, and he basically gave like a summary video of my work, and it was really good, really well done, and he went viral with it. And I was like, wow, people actually still like this concept, this idea. You know, it's really reaching people, and my channel started getting more subscribers again because of it, even though there was nothing posted in like 4 years, you know. People were subscribing, and I thought maybe the heat's died off enough now, and I can probably just make all the videos public again and no one would notice, you know, because it's been like a few years. So I did just that, and yeah, the series started getting views again and building traction. And a lot of things happened at that workplace, which made me realize it's time to leave. I've served my time in the world, pretending to be something I'm not. And I think God pushed me out through a series of extremely unfortunate events, which seemed horrible at the time, but really were a blessing in disguise, because it caused me and my wife especially, just to say to me, let's just quit. Let's just quit and go self-employed and try and make it on our own. So we did. Mm. We just did it. Leap of faith, quit our jobs. We both worked for the same company by that point.
Oh, okay.
And we started a wedding photography company. And it was okay for the first year. It was okay for the first year. Yeah. Is that what you are?
Or I'm transitioning out of it, but have for a long time. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have all the equipment. I'm an art student, and I'm an avid photographer already. Nature photographer. Yeah. So I have all the equipment, all the lenses, everything. Top of the range stuff. And it's kind of like my wife is the same and had her own range of equipment and everything. So it's like, why don't we just do it? We've got the supply. Let's just.
That's why I did it, because I had everything I needed.
Yeah, exactly. And it worked for the first year. We actually had a decent year, we had to go into our savings just to start the whole thing. And it kind of broke even in the first year. But then the second year, we just didn't get any business at all. But by that point, I'd started the channel again and started posting again and doing weekly shows. And it kind of just took off again. And I started posting more episodes. So episode 18 was the first one I came back with, called the Multicolored Collective, and I think it's 2022 when I started again. I think that was the year, and I've just posted like another 20 to 30 episodes since then, and the series is now 45 episodes in. I just released a new one about the Royal Order of the Jesters and the secret societies, and I wrote the book from 2022 to 2024, and I had it published in July 2024. Which is kind of a summary of most of the videos. I'm working on the second volume now, which will kind of finalize the whole project. And the book sold 5,000 copies. It's done extremely well. And it's got 4.8 reviews, 4.8 stars in out of 200 reviews, which I'm very happy with. And I started doing the podcast circuit, talking about the concept, doing presentations, showing my findings and the visuals and everything about it. And I know what it sounds like. Believe me, I do, because I don't even care about clowns. I'm not like a clown enthusiast, It's just I uncovered this thing which is glaringly obvious once you start paying attention, and I found it captures the imagination of a younger generation, especially. And I found the perfect way to get the gospel to them and to explain biblical history in a way they probably never really heard before. Mm-hmm. It's kind of summarizing the works of all these great people who came before me in an abridged version that's easy to understand. So the first half of the book is that. It's called The Foundation, and it tells the story of humanity from the beginning to Jesus to us today in a way that can be understood, combating the hard questions, like why a flood? What was the pre-flood world like? How did the Nephilim come around? What happened in the Garden of Eden exactly? And I give all the theories, all the ideas we have. And you can choose from there what you want to believe, but we have working ideas. How did the Nephilim come back after the flood? How did that happen exactly? Well, there's 5 options here. Let's go through them all. And the book does that. It goes through them all, it lays them all out. And I think it helps people kind of understand biblical history better than perhaps they would on their own, because it takes time. So my idea was, how can I get it to them quick, concise, easy? So that's what the first half of the book is. And once I've laid the foundation of where demons come from and what Jesus gives us the authority to cast them out and the rest of it, and get all the basics down, the second half of the book explains the costume of a clown. And the costume of a clown is basically our version in the West of the same costume worn by many cultures all over the earth who venerate what they call their ancestor spirits. And these ancestor spirits are not like aunties or uncles or great-great-grandma. The primordial gods who created the civilizations. That's how they see them. Ancient entities of knowledge and power that their tribe has always had a deep connection with since forever. If it's just tradition, it's what we do. And they dress like it to mimic the way it looks in the spiritual realm, to then let that spirit into their bodies. It's a channeling tool. Yeah. So you mirror the thing in the spirit realm, you create a tunnel between the two of you, and it can get through into our realm, into your body. That's kind of the method. And it's a well-known method. It's used by a lot of cultures all over the earth and every single continent. You dress like the thing in the spirit realm to let that thing into your body. And then you eat stuff, drink stuff, kill stuff, whatever the demon wants, you do it with your body. And the demon gets to feel it through your senses.
Right.
He gets to have that pleasure once more that he's had forever, since being disembodied.
Yeah.
Because the problem is being disembodied and still on the earth is that you have all these desires, wants and needs and thirsts and hungers, but you have no means to satiate any of them because you have no body to experience anything with. So it's hell to them. They're living a perpetual hell in the dry places, as it's described by Jesus, a place of no satiation. Imagine being thirsty and not having any mouth or organs or anything to get rid of that sensation of thirst. It's kind of, so when they come into our bodies, they live through our senses, and it's a transactional deal in these cultures. So, I'll let you in my body and I'll drink the blood or whatever it is you want, but you need to give me something. Demon, you need to give me the strength of 10 men or something, or the knowledge to understand something profound, or the ability to not bleed or not be cut by blades, something like that. It's like usually a deal. Or in the West, it's like, give me fame, fortune, power, and money. It's that kind of thing. Every culture has their own needs. Tribal warring cultures, they would love to not have to deal with the pointy end of a spear and to be impervious to damage, because but in the West, it's like, I want power, I want influence, I want money. It's that type of thing instead. So deals are made for many reasons with contracts with demons. And one method is to dress like them, to commune with them. So when you look at the common aesthetics between all these cultures, you'll find that they actually dress like clowns, as we would call them in the West. They have white face paint, red lipstick, big eyes in the mask that they wear, or they paint patterns around the eyes, or they do something to make the eyes look bigger and shining. They put a red headdress on, or a gold headdress, or a diamond encrusted headdress. They wear multicolored clothing with ribbons and patches and sequins and all sorts of things. Some of them go around on stilts. They do everything they can to look like the spirit that they want to channel. And by any standard, from a Western perspective, they are clown costume features. And it's because that's what the spirits look like. That's what they actually do look like. And it was inherited from the dragon parents and human parents. And when you mix those two things together, you get something that looks like a psychedelic, wide grinning clown monster. It's actually really, really terrifying to consider. And you can look at the costumes alone to infer what these things would have looked like, at least in spiritual form. But if we look at actual ancient artwork, these things were depicted everywhere, and they have many names, and they all have their own culturally specific reasons for existing and mythos surrounding them. But when you look at them, they all look the same, and they're thousands of miles apart on different continents. It's because they're the same offspring, they're the same creatures, and they were interacting with people of the region who didn't know any better, and they became the gods or demons of the region, or they were worshipped, feared in many different cultures have different reasons for them, veneration or fear, whatever it is, but they are all the same creature. They are Nephilim. They are the hybridized creatures of the dragons mixed with humans. And you'll find they all have the same features: big, wide grins, sharp buck teeth, huge, wide, bulging eyes, red hair, very white, pale complexion, multicolored patterns all over the skin. They look like clowns. That's what we would call them from our perspective. Wow. So when the clown costume was created in the 1800s, prior to that, the character of clown was modeled after Pedrolino from the Italian tradition of the Commedia dell'arte, a troupe of traveling actors who were put on improvised shows in different villages. When it got to the UK, that character became known as clown, and it basically meant clodhopper or fool. It was like a colloquial term in Britain for fool, for idiot, And clown, from the British pantomime theatre, got a costume change. So no longer did he dress in the plain white servant rags of Elizabethan rags of Pedrolino, but now he was dressed in a psychedelic coloured, patterned, fractaled, crazy dress thing with white makeup and a huge grin, and what we call clowns today, basically, and that was the industry standard from that day in 1799 when that costume change was made. It inspired every other clown in the future to dress that way because it was just so bizarre and wonderful and set the character apart for the first time. But if you look at why that costume change was made, it's never explained other than he was trying to make his mark on the industry as a new showrunner. the person who put him in that costume. And this new showrunner was the son of an extremely prominent Freemason of the day called Charles Dibdin. He was called Charles Dibdin Jr. They did that a lot back then in the 1800s. But Charles Dibdin Jr., who was given this leading role as running the theatre called Sadler's Wells in London, because his father knew the guy who owned the theatre. So it was nepotism. Make my son run your theatre for a little bit, please. And he's like, yeah, no worries. That's basically what happened. Yeah, that's genuinely what happened. And his other son, Thomas, also was given the privilege before this guy to do it as well. So it's just, I know a guy. My father knows a guy. That's why I got this job. But when he did join, he did change the costume of clown immediately. And if you look into the family of the Dibdins, they actually knew India very well. His father's brother was in India, in the East India Company, colonizing India at that time. So his father, Charles Dibdin Sr., would travel back and forth all the time to India and probably take his son with him. So it was a family affair. And he was a Freemason. He was a member of the Leicester Lodge. It's all in the book, documented. You can look into it. There was eulogies written to him 100 years after his death, celebrating him as a member. It was at least of the third degree, we can gather, because of some of the plays he wrote talking about Hiram Abiff, which is a ritual at the third degree of Freemasonry. So we know that much at least. But he was very famous. He wrote a lot of songs for the British Navy, which was sung on the high seas. He was equated with keeping the morale of the men up to win these victories at sea. He was his songs are still sung today, and songs are still played today by orchestras at what we call the proms in Britain every single year to close the show. Tom Bowling, it's called. And again, that was a tribute to his brother who was colonizing India, who died over there. So it was all, this is a well-documented person, and his son changed the costume of the clown. For the first time, by the way, this is like 1,000 years of tradition suddenly just changed overnight. Okay. Wow. And where did the costume inspiration come from? Well, it's from India. They stole the image of the Rakshasa demons of India and dressed this actor on this stage in London who played the clown in this new costume, which mimics the Indian demon, basically the Indian version of Nephilim. And it's literally a carbon copy of the costume. It's a carbon copy of the costumes worn by the same demons on the temples in Thailand. It's identical. And he just knew India. He knew the demonic iconography. He stole it and dressed a clown that way. So clowns are quite literally models of specifically the Indian flavor of Nephilim. That costume is inspired directly from that, which is why Nephilim, from our opinion, look like clowns and vice versa, is because it's specifically from that Indian version. So clowns have always been representations of demons as we know them today with the modern costume. Prior to that, they weren't. They were just stupid people who did silly things in the play, But in that moment, as soon as that costume change was made and made the industry standard, you are now dressing like a demon from India. That's what you are dressing like. That's where it comes from. And it's changed a little bit into the modern age. The afro got more bigger and red. But even then, that's an exact copy of the Wanjinas in Australia, who do quite literally look like that. White face, giant red afro, big eyes, And you'll find these flavor of Nephilim from Australia are the offspring of the rainbow serpents. So the Nephilim, the dragons, and the serpents, the fiery flying snakes. And it's the same story on every continent, where these creatures exist. They are the result of snake-like entities mixing with human women. If you go to Echidna, which is from the Gorgons from Greek mythology, she births Medusa, which is one of the Gorgons, one of the three sisters. And she birthed many monsters. And her husband, so this siren called Echidna, her husband was Typhon, the sea serpent god. So it was a sea dragon, was mixing with this human woman who became a siren. She got snake legs eventually, and she birthed Medusa. Now, Medusa, as we know it today, has snakes for hair and all this type of stuff. She actually doesn't. That's just a modern iteration of the whole image. If you look at old depictions of Medusa, she has a human body, but she's massive, and she's holding a horse under her arm, usually, like a pet dog, like a chihuahua. She has wings, like an angel, so she's half angel, half human. She has a massive head with a huge smile, fangs coming up and down, massive eyes, and she's white, like porcelain white, and she has red dreadlocks. So she looks like a clown, basically,
Well,
from our perspective. You know, again, same story: sea dragon mixing with human women, creating clown-looking Nephilim giant monsters with wide grins that eat people.
Yeah.
The Wanginas, the offspring of the rainbow serpents, mixing with Mother Earth. It's just a metaphor for snake gods mixing with women. You know, creating the Wanginas, these giant clown-looking things that can control the weather and bring rain. Because the Nephilim had powers, they had angelic parents, they had supernatural abilities. You know, it's just everywhere. It's all over the place. Okay, they were scattered with myths of these giants appearing because heaven came down to earth and mixed with earth in some way. Every culture has their own mythos for this, but the offspring are always the same. These creatures that I'm telling you about right now, and we, like I said, so clowns from the very inception have always been a representation of the demonic. You can't convince me otherwise. It's clear as day. There's nothing good about that costume whatsoever. You dress like that, you're going to channel demons. And all these other cultures know it and they practice it regularly. But in the West, we're not supposed to know that that's what the costume is for. We're not supposed to know that. Okay? In the West, we have to occult and hide that kind of information because we're a highly Christianized part of the earth. And if we get wise to what's really going on, we can cast those demons out in the name of Christ quite quickly and easily. But these isolated tribes in these continents that don't practice Christianity, they're not worried about that. The demons don't care. They know nobody here in this little isolated village is going to suddenly start calling on the name of Christ. So they'll openly display themselves through the possessed. And they'll speak through the possessed, and they'll put on a display, you know, and brazenly, without any fear of reprimand. But if they did that here, one of us is going to stand up and go, in Jesus' name, I rebuke you, get out of here, you have no authority to be here. Someone's going to do it, you know, like, because it's too risky, isn't it? So they hide it here in the West under the guise of something harmless, silly, fun for the kids. And that costume is still used in our region of the earth, in the Western world, for the exact same reason these other cultures use it for.
Yeah.
Okay. And these secret societies who clung onto the costume and incorporated it into the circuses, all circuses in America especially are owned by Shriners. You know, they incorporated the costume into the media of the day, which was the traveling circus, and have kept it alive until the modern day because it's too useful. It's too useful of a tool to channel demons. And they can do it publicly in the open. They can encourage other people to dress that way. They'll continuously popularize the clown image through movies like It or The Joker or something like this, or a new serial killer clown movie. They'll inspire people to dress that way, or for Halloween, whatever it is. But as long as you can get people dressing that way or changing their look to be more clown-like, you're creating more channels. You're creating more mirrors of the spirits in that realm. And then if you do that, you're inviting them in, whether you know it or not. That's just how it works, unfortunately. And that's the game we're up against. That's an aspect of spiritual warfare people are not aware of. What you wear really does matter in a big way. And this is not a secret to any of these other cultures I've mentioned. To us, it just seems superstitious and silly. It isn't. And that's my work on the Nephilim Clowns. Very quickly summarized. That's what I'm known for. That's what my channel is. But I've also delved into many topics since then. But that's that. So I went on for a long time. I'm sorry. I've explained everything as quickly and succinctly as I possibly can in 43 minutes. I'll give it to you to ask questions, and I'll let you take over now. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was great. There was a lot of information there. I was gonna, you kind of just addressed it just now, but I was gonna say, can somebody unintentionally or unawareingly put on one of these outfits and be affected spiritually by it, channel these demons?
Yeah, I don't think ignorance of the spiritual law will make you immune to it. Yeah, and people are like me saying this. I really don't think your intention matters.
Okay.
I really don't think it does. I don't think we have that actually. I don't think I think that's an occult concept, like a new agey Gnostic
people use
term,
that
like,
excuse a lot. My
intention controls the spiritual realm or something like this. It's kind of like, you don't have that. You're not God. You don't have that kind of power. The demons would love you to think your intention matters. It doesn't.
Right.
It really
there's
doesn't.
laws.
Like,
there's laws of nature, and
there's contracts and laws, and there's immutable facts about reality and how it functions. And if you mirror something in the spirit realm, you are creating a channel for it to get into your body. That is just a rule. And if you accidentally do it and didn't mean to, I don't think it's going to change the outcome, unfortunately. I really don't think so. So that's my take on that.
Mm-hmm. I have an image here of the cover I'll throw up here. You kind of already showed the book, but I would love to get it myself. I'd love to have a signed copy if I can somehow. How can people buy this book? I guess it's probably on the Amazon or something.
It is. You can just go on straight to Amazon.
Okay.
It's there. Just type in the Nephilim Look Like Clowns. You can't miss it.
Yeah.
And you can get it in paperback, hardcover. You can get it on Kindle. You can get it an audiobook. I've just released the audiobook. I've recorded it all myself here on this microphone in the office. And
you didn't use AI?
It'll match up perfectly. What's that?
You didn't use AI?
No, I did not. I did not use AI to record this. Absolutely not. It's all me, 100%. Even the book, I didn't use AI to write the book either. It's all me,
right,
through and through. And yeah, so you can get it in any format you want on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, just email me at understandingconspiracy@gmail.com, and I can get one out to you by post from this office. Like I said, I've got a stack here. I think I've got 2 or 3 left of this batch. People have already bought them. I'm going to send them out in a batch. So you can get them from me directly if you want. But if you don't want to pay for a book, it's fine. It's just a way to support me if you want to. All the information is in the videos on YouTube for free, and the book is kind of a summary of that information in a way. It's a more condensed, refined version of the ramblings that I have in those videos. It's kind of a more put together, heavily referenced guide. So this is not just something I'm making up. There's a lot of references in this book. There's like 386 references in this book alone.
Oh, cool.
Books for you to go and read, articles to go and read, images to go and check out to back up what I'm saying and everything. It's heavily researched. It's scholarly work, some might say. I've put the effort into this because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I understand that, and I went at it with that attitude. So I don't think you'll be disappointed if you read the book and check out the references and see that this is all heavily backed up by real historical sources. So that's it.
I'll definitely buy one. I'm all about supporting people. I see it on the cover. It says Volume 1. What's that all about? Is there Volume 2?
Like I said, I'm working on Volume 2 right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So the first book is called The History, and it is literally a laying out of biblical history, where the Nephilim come from and why we even have an issue with demons to begin with. And then it goes in the second half, the history of the clown costume, where we get it from, why it represents the Nephilim and breaking down the caricature. And then we go into things like the Hat Man, circuses, the history of the circus, the ringleader, the top hat wearing shamanism and the channeling of demons, how that works, the method behind it all. And then the book kind of ends with a sneak peek of what the second book's about. So it goes into sacred clowning, and it starts delving into cultures around the earth. We're first focusing on the Heyoka of the sacred clowns of North America, and kind of exploring what they believe they're doing when they wear these costumes, and what the shamans think they're communicating with and why, and what the aesthetics of those costumes are, and how we get jester-like qualities from them and clown-like qualities inherited from the snake-like features of the parents, so it kind of gives a hint of what the next book is about. And the next book, actually there is a special ending to this book, a letter to the psychedelic community, telling them what they're really experiencing, what they're actually talking with when they encounter entities over there, what the intentions of these entities really are, explaining that they're not your friends, and they do have agendas and reasons for being there. They're not reflections of your own dark shadow consciousness or anything like Jungian psychological explanations you want to come up with. They're real tangible entities that used to exist on Earth who are lying to you, and are making that clear at the end of the book. And then the second book, like I said, is going to carry on with that theme of going through every single continent, every single culture in these continents, going back to the oral ancient traditions of these lands. And if you follow what these ancestor spirit worship cultures do and what they wear and the masks they make and the artwork they create and the rituals they do, I show the clown-like aesthetics that run through them all, and what they think they're communicating with, and proving the point through anthropology that the Nephilim did look like clowns. And this is how we can look outside of the Bible at the world to prove that the Bible was telling you the truth. And all these other cultures are just a testament to the narrative of the Old Testament and the Nephilim narrative. But you don't just have to take the Bible's word for it. The world is screaming it at you through all these other cultures that are still around who still worship them. So that's kind of what the second book is about. And then the second half of the second book, once that's boxed off, is about TV, film, media, music industry, how the costume's still utilized today, and it's going into all the mainstream popular stuff that everyone loves so much at the end.
Wow.
Talk about the fear of clowns, coulrophobia, clowns, serial killers, all that type of thing. That's all in the back end of the second book, which I'm writing right now. I'm about a third to half of the way through, roughly. It's a long process. I don't know when it's going to be finished, but when it's finished, it's finished. And then that'll be it. Volume 1 and 2. So the volume 1's called The History. Volume 2 is going to be called The Now. And that's it. Done.
Okay.
Once that's
very cool.
finished. So that's what's happening right now. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I look forward to reading that. And I'm also, and anyone listening, check out the YouTube channel, because like you mentioned, there's many, like a series of videos regarding just this topic, right?
Yeah, there's a special playlist dedicated to it.
Okay.
On my channel, I've got playlists dedicated to many different aspects of what I do on Understanding Conspiracy. And the Nephilim Clowns is like a boxed off section of my work. Like I said, I cover many topics and ideas and things, and it's all kind of condensed into one thing. But if you do click the interviews and collaborations playlist, which this will probably end up on one day, you'll find loads of presentations I've done with people like yourself over the years. Some of them with visuals, some of them on big platforms and smaller platforms. I've done like 48 interviews about this topic, and you can maybe go and watch some of them. And it's like I'll give a lot of summarized presentations on that. You know what I mean? On some of those podcasts. So that's where you can kind of get more information on the Nephilim Clowns. If you just want to know what it's all about, I've said it 1,000 times with visuals to boot. You know what I mean? Sure. So go check it out on the channel too if you want to get like more. It is a visual topic. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Sure
maybe one day when this is all done and dusted, I'll make a deluxe edition with pictures and everything. But the rights to images can get very expensive.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's one of those. Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to just about, you do all kinds of conspiracies on your channel. I'm just curious, in the last couple of weeks or a month or two, what have been some of your favorites or most interesting? I know you talk a lot about occult things, but also conspiracy things. Anything that comes to mind that's like really maybe surprised you or that was really interesting to you?
Well, over the years, I have talked about primarily spiritual warfare related topics. That's kind of what my other focus has primarily been on, which is what this work is about. It's spiritual warfare, really. What's our enemy? What are our weapons against them? How they operate, and what can we do as believers in Christ to help other people and defend ourselves? So I try to focus on that a lot. And whenever I cover any topic, I'm always thinking about it from that kind of angle. So I right now I have been following AI and what we think is going on there. We're following space news. There's always a new comet coming into our atmosphere at some point, apparently. There's
one right now, apparently, right?
Yeah, 3i Atlas. I'm going to do a show about that right after this, to be honest, because it's developing as time goes on. But at the same time, I spent a year really heavily focused on one specific topic, which is kind of known as Satan's little season. And I covered it. I wasn't the first person to talk about this, actually. This was actually covered years before me. And I kind of was thinking about it for a long time. And I made my first video on it in October of 2023. And I spent that year just going into it heavily and kind of fleshing it out. And it's a heavy topic. I've done my work. There's a whole playlist dedicated on that on my channel still. I don't talk about it so much these days because a lot of things happened, which made me think I need to perhaps take a back foot on this for now and let other people take over. But that topic, I would say, is something I'm also quite well known for. And it's the idea that we're living in the end of Revelation, not in chapter 13. So we're not waiting for tribulation to happen. That already did happen. And the millennial kingdom, 1,000-year physical reign on earth with resurrected saints, already happened. Jesus Christ is still king. He's still won. He's still in control. But the devil is let loose for a short while at the end of that 1,000-year period. He gets locked up at the start of tribulation, and doesn't he? And then it's 1,000 years, That's over now. we are living in the remains of that beautiful world and kingdom that was on the earth. And what has taken over in a very short amount of time, perhaps 250 years, is what we live in today.
Yeah.
And that is the last season of Satan, his last moment before the final great white throne judgment. And his job is to gather an army, the number of the sands of the sea, to go make war with the camp of saints. And I think we're living in that time period. And I think there's been a lot of timeline manipulation, a lot of lies about our history, a lot of cover-ups. I think secret societies, primarily their job is to hide the history and to make a new history and to make a new system, an educational system, a new world that isn't really the world we're actually living in. It's all made through media and books and lies and artwork and magic, you know, to put an illusion over us and make us distracted long enough not to realize that Christ's kingdom was here. And what we're waiting for is the new heaven and earth at the end of time. So I don't think our blessed hope has been taken away. I don't think the mandate for Christians has changed to go and make disciples of men. I don't think it changes anything at all. We still have the Gospels. His word goes on forever. You know, nothing will take it away. And we can still have a relationship with Christ. We're not left behind or anything like that, you know. But there are people who have to live through that time. It's in the book. And it could be us. And it's a time of complete deception. You wouldn't know you were living in it, right? If Satan's, you know, that's the point of this. Like, it rings true to a lot of people when I talk about these things, but a lot of cognitive dissonance and denial can kick in because you've been taught a lot of stuff by your churches, which, if we're in the little season, are also corrupt and also teaching a false theology and eschatology, which is primarily futurist, dispensationalist, Zionist theology, right? Which is, again, completely false if we're in the little season, and it's forced on you through the seminary schools. So even your pastors and preachers are teaching this theology to you because they were taught to teach it in their schools, which are also corrupt, just like every other school institution is corrupt, secular or religious. It doesn't matter. It gets big. As you can tell, this goes on and on and on, and I can go on for hours about this. And I did many presentations. I went on massive platforms discussing this and just explaining the evidence we do have, using scripture to back it up as well. This is all scripturally grounded. Yeah. So I did talk about that for a long time, and I kind of got obsessed with it, and I indirectly became a leader of it. Not the only person, not like the only person. There was other people, big names, you know, and I was one of them. And it got to the point where it seemed like the movement was going in a very strange direction. People were trying to make churches based on this idea. And I can't get on board with that. I think the last thing Christianity needs is another bloody denomination. I cannot. Oh, yeah, right. We do not need more denominations being made in Christianity. You know, I thought it's an interesting idea. Let's talk about it. Let's flesh it out. I don't want to start a cult over this, but other people had different ideas, rolled with it, took it with their own direction, took what I said and perhaps made something completely massive out of it. And I think people were treating me strange because of it, and I didn't like the way it was going. Yeah. And my family started getting attacked. I started getting attacked by other Christians who wanted to, I think, own the movement. I don't think they liked that I was so popular, and they wanted to. It got really weird, honestly. And people don't know this because they're not living my life. You know, they don't see the things that go on behind the scenes and what other channels are doing. And not only was that happening, but also a rise of Christians were also attacking us because they thought we were preaching the doctrines of devils, and a lot of that heat started coming on us as well. But they could never do anything to actually debunk the idea because it's biblical. They just didn't like it. So they said, no, it's not. Nuh-uh. That's basically their entire argument, you know? And it's kind of, okay, whatever. Basically, yeah. But it was ramping up, and even that was a fear. But the biggest fear was coming from inside the movement for me. The sharks and wolves were circling. I think a lot of charlatans were seeing a money-making ploy here. I think a lot of people wanted to make a movement out of it that they could monetize and control in their own way. I think the whole thing was getting very weird. Yeah. And I decided, and me and my wife decided, it's kind of, no, we're out. We can't keep doing this. the channel's losing its focus. It's not a little season channel. It was just one topic we were looking into because we want to understand conspiracy. So we had to, I remembered who I was, I'm still a Christian truther, and we cover everything on this channel, not just one topic. And I didn't want my channel just to be pigeonholed as a little season channel. I still have a lot of work to do on the Nephilim Clown topic, which spiritual warfare aspect is what I really want to talk about. So what I do now, everything I do is, I suppose, in a way inspired by that work on the little season. I believe it, but I'm not focusing on it. Do you know what I mean? So I always consider everything that happens from that lens now.
Yeah.
Because we have to consider it, as a possibility. And that's the whole point of understanding holistic images, which is what I try to do. So yeah, like I said, right now I am focusing on what's going on in the world, what are the people being swept along with, what's the rise of transhumanism, technology, AI, space, fake alien agenda stuff, you know what I mean? And we've got political upheaval, assassinations, all that type of thing. We stay on, I keep a finger on it. I provide commentary, but also the weird stuff. I recently just made a video about something called Mall World, which is seems to be some odd phenomena where people are having the same dream and they're going to the same place in their dreams. And I've even been there, which is why it was so personal to me, and I had to make a video about it. But a lot of people are having this experience right now where they're going to this place that they've called Mall World. It doesn't have to be a shopping mall. It's just kind of like a catch-all phrase for a place with many, many rooms, a place with many outlets, a place with an infinite maze of stairs and escalators and rooms and buildings and skyscrapers and tunnels and roads, and it's just a huge, endless cityscape that you can explore endlessly. And everyone's going there. Well, not everyone. A lot of people are going there in their dreams, have distinct memories of being in this place. And even myself, and we're trying to speculate and theorize what this is right now, spiritually speaking. The working theory right now, what one person said was, it's like a demonic spiritual firewall that's been implanted into us through programming. So when people dream, they don't communicate with God, but they're distracted by the mall world. It keeps their attention distracted. It keeps them busy. It keeps their dreams locked into figuring out how to get out of this place or something like that. So as long as they're too busy focusing on the mall world and being tantalized by it, they're too busy to pay attention to God. Do you get what I mean? When a lot of dreams are supposed to be there for us to communicate and get messages about how to live our lives from God and teach us lessons and the rest of it, I think dreams are a good thing. But whatever this more world is, it's like a parasitical holographic projection trapping our consciousness when we sleep, and keeping us busy, basically. And people are saying, like, I fell out of more world and saw what was behind the scenes, and it was like a demonic projection, and they were angry that we saw through it, so they were killing us and put us back into the more world. And people are telling all sorts of stories about it, on forums and things. I'm like, this is crazy. So I made a video about that recently, and that's what I mean. We find those fun things, those deep things, those things that make us question what's really going on, and I talk about those as well. So so many things on the channel. It's truly endless. It really is. I have a lot of fun doing it, though. This is my passion. This is what I do,
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that it's kind of self-sustaining and you're able to do this, because you got a lot of content out there, and I'll definitely be checking more out myself. Any last final thoughts before we end?
I mean, if you wind me up, I'll go for hours. That's the issue.
You're very good at talking.
I am. I know. I don't shut up, and I'm sorry. But at the same time, I suppose that's something I think a lot of your listeners can probably relate to as a truther. We tend to chew people's ears off because we get excited about the things we're researching. And we can lose a lot of loved ones and friends and family by doing that, because we can go across a little bit overbearing. So I'm blessed. I have this outlet to do that, so I don't drive my wife insane. Okay, so that I get this out of my system doing this. But I've been there in the past, trying to tell people when you wake up, it's hard, it's a struggle. And I do have a series on my channel called Tips for Truthers. It's a playlist again, and they are short, like 10 to 20 minute videos, hitting those points that you'll all relate to while learning the truth and how to kind of navigate it. And there's like 20 episodes or something, and there's quite a lot on there. So there's an old version of it from when I was just driving around in my car talking to the camera. There's a more updated version I've made now, where it's me in the office kind of refining it and making it a bit more palatable to the ears because there's no hum of the engine anymore, that type of thing. So go and check that out. I would say if you're on your journey and you're struggling and you need help, I think I've tried to make that help. I've given that for people to listen to, and you might learn a thing or two because there's things on there you probably don't want to hear, to be honest, about how maybe you're not behaving quite as well as you could be. I think a lot of truthers need to hear these things. There's a lot of hard truths there.
You got to look at yourself sometimes.
Exactly. So I suppose I'll just end with that, and come and join the channel and get in on the conversation. Join me on my live shows. Talk to me. Ask me questions. Join my Telegram. Ask me questions on there. I'm always on there. We have a solid community, and we can have some fun while doing it as well. So
yeah, sounds good. I'm just going to throw up the YouTube channel URL, but I'll put links in the description on YouTube and everything. Thanks so much, Paul, for coming, and maybe we'll get to chat again sometime. But this has been a lot of fun, and hope you have a great night, and God bless.
Thank you. God bless.